The Honourable Taylor Martin.
Dr. Harris, let me do that.
If members wish to have discussions, would they please take them outside the chamber?
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier this month, I announced on behalf of the Minister for Health that the tender had been awarded for the construction of the $72.5 million Central Coast Medical School, right next to the new $348 million Gosford Public Hospital that we opened last year. Being a part of this government, which has put building infrastructure at the forefront of our agenda, an announcement in a high-vis vest and a New South Wales government hard hat is not an uncommon way to spend a morning. This one, however, was different. In my inaugural speech in this place, I spoke about how in November 2012, while commuting to and from Sydney every day for work, I met for the first time at Gosford Station the then Liberal candidate for Robertson, Lucy Wicks. I distinctly remember asking Lucy what she wanted to do for commuters like me, who had, having been born in Gosford Hospital, going to school on the Central Coast and having studied at the University of Newcastle, would then inevitably have to commute over 4 hours a day to or from Sydney for a career. And I remember Lucy in her sky blue overcoat, which would become such a staple in the mornings at Gosford train station that it's since been worn through, telling me about her vision to build a university campus right there in the middle of Gosford. The vision was not just for a building, and the campus was not just an election commitment, Mr. President. It was to be the most important piece of a jigsaw to getting Gosford off the ground once and for all. I remember that it was this vision that led me to get in touch with the local Liberal campaign that I had met that morning to help out and get involved to make it a reality. Upon becoming the federal member in 2013, Lucy set about bringing the stakeholders together to put the pieces together and make it happen. Not long after, I put my career in finance on hold to work on Lucy's staff and be a part of the team that would keep this vision going forward. One particular meeting ended with Lucy telling everyone in attendance that we would have Oxford right here in Gosford. And I can tell you, Mr. President, that almost nobody believed her. In 2016, I remember driving through Gosford with Lucy when the call came from the Federal Treasurer at the time, Scott Morrison, who had just signed off on $32.5 million, which would be the federal government's contribution to the overall project. With this commitment, the project became a serious proposal. Then soon after, the call from the then Premier Mike Baird, who had committed the New South Wales government to contributing a further $20 million. As a Liberal, I was particularly proud that the state government funding was a result of the Gosford Hospital project being ahead of time and under budget. The final piece was needed, with the $20 million from the University of Newcastle. With the state federal funding lined up and signed off, it was all ready to go. During these years of working through the detail and getting past the roadblocks that would inevitably come with trying to bring bureaucracies together, Lucy, at every available opportunity, has talked about the future for school leavers on the Central Coast to one day see a world-class medical university right there in the middle of Gosford. The vision that school kids at Gosford High School could literally look out the window across the road and see that they could go to that school there near where they grew up if they wanted once they finished their studies. Students that are in Year 10 today will be able to watch the construction, knowing what opportunities are available to them when they finish high school. The announcement that construction will begin is the start of the next volume in Gosford's history, not just another chapter in the same book, but a whole new book. When those students from our schools on the Central Coast start at the Central Coast Medical School in years to come, their lives, their families' lives, their children's lives, and more importantly, the lives of their patients will be forever different to what they could have been otherwise. It is the culmination of 7 years of Lucy pushing through every hurdle that was put up to make this dream a reality. But perhaps more telling was not the announcement of the build, but the commencement of the very first director of the new Central Coast Medical Research Institute, Professor Nicholas Goodwin. It was quite fitting, Mr. President, for Professor Goodwin to let Lucy and I know at the end of our announcement that he and his family are currently moving there their whole life from here from the UK, Oxford to be exact, and to think that almost no one believed her.
I want to know more about your parking